I'm going to call the meeting to order. Notice the meeting was posted Monday, May 1st this year. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting held on April 25th?
Yes.
Got a motion, I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, item number 4. Grant's going to give us an update on his department, if he has an update.
Okay, gotcha. Really, I only have one item to bring, just to, I guess, inform you of is, and it's been something we've talked about before, but cases being held at the courts, waiting on a signature for release. They can sit there upwards to, a couple months. They could also be, upwards of 120 waiting for signatures. A lot of times what happens while we're waiting on those signatures is that the case changes in some sort of fashion. They're released. It hits the 10 days and there hasn't been any filing on it, so Judge Hall releases them. Or they're sentenced, or their case is changed in some sort of fashion. But for us, what that means is it sits on the desk and they sit in jail for an extended period of time, waiting on a signature, and nothing happens. So really, that's...
But you discussed these items on your other boards.
Sure, we discussed that. That's become a regular topic of the advisory board. Almost every meeting that's discussed, and I send emails. What we do is we do 2 checks a day. We do 2 mail runs. So we're checking in with the courts 2 times a day on the paperwork, if they've been signed or if they're going to be signed, and just staying on top of it. But I guess that's just information for you guys to have that. And it's not so much that they're being denied, it's just the fact that they sit for such a long period of time that instead of them being released and supervised by us, they're still sitting in jail.
Okay.
But that's all I have for today, just some information.
Joe, you got anything?
Well, I recognize you discussed this with your advisory board, but it is troubling, and it's probably the exception, I would hope, rather than the rule, that people who could otherwise be out or be supervised by you guys sometimes are sitting on a desk for up to 2 months. What is your advisory board, what are they trying to do to rectify this situation?
One thing we've discussed, and I've discussed with several of them, if we could come up with one judge that we could take all of our paperwork to instead of dispersing them. Because they get busy, things happen, there's cases going on. If we had one judge we could work with individually and daily, we take it to just them, and they're conscious of the time constraints and what's going on, and they're ready to sign them at first chance they get, would be a tremendous help for us. And that's been discussed.
But haven't some of the judges gone on record where if they were previously seen before a certain judge and they've reoffended, that judge wants to see them?
Right. So that would be something that would take a lot of work.
And I agree with what Joe's saying. If this board, which I don't think we do, if we had any influence over the advisory board where we could change some procedures, I think that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, that one change right there would, I think, do a lot.
Well, I would like to visit with you, because this is the first I've heard that we were having paperwork sitting on the judge's desk for 2 months without being signed. I know we had issues with getting inmates down from the jail. On Monday, we had 10 inmates for one judge in jail with pleas ready to go, and they could not get them from the 11th floor to the judge's courtroom for him to do that day. And all of them would have been out of the jail, either go home or going to DOC. So that's not sitting on the judge's desk. So yeah, I'd like to visit with you and see, because I know the courts are not interested in keeping the jail backed up. So if there's something we can work on together, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, we'll see if we can get them to sign it.
Well, and do you go to their advisory meetings?
I do not. I have not been to those, but I'm going to start. Yeah, that's a great idea, because anything we can do to help.
Yeah.
And which judge is on that committee?
It is
Judge
Henderson and Kronos.
That really
If
surprises
you'll just get Renee
Yeah.
looped in on when those are, that would probably be, you guys can work it out. Awesome.
Sure.
grants update was kind of on the status of some of the releases. Sometimes paperwork sits on desk even up to 2 months. 120 people that could be out waiting signatures, so it's kind of, in case you didn't see it on TV, that's kind of what we got, Randy.
Great.
Anything else, Grant?
Oh, no, sir.
Motion to receive, Steve.
So moved. Got a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 5. Mr. Barnes is going to give us an update on his operation.
Good morning. Another wonderful weekend in emergency management. As hopefully you saw the report that I sent out on Saturday, a bit of a status report following the torrential rainfall and flooding in a lot of areas. Touch base with the 3 highway district superintendents, multiple jurisdictions, sheriff's office, and lots of different operations, and just try to give you a little bit of an idea of kind of what was going on in the county from the weather emergency management perspective, and those will continue. I think one of the biggest projects we've got going on right now is something that is, to be honest with you, been my nemesis for several years, and I've committed a great deal of time and energy to a complete rewrite of the Oklahoma County Emergency Operations Plan. And we're actually shifting the format of that from the old style of writing to what's now called the ESF, or Emergency Support Function format. And that's coming along nicely. I'm quite pleased with progress in that. District Attorney's Office is going to likely want to take me out and hang me when I offer that document for review, because it is lengthy. And providing a copy of the old one and notating the revisions is something that's not really possible. But we'll work our way through that. There'll be a lot of review from different departments and different organizations in regard to that document before it's finalized to the point for review. Still pretty much hand-strapped in the ongoing remodel project downstairs. Sure like to have that for storm season, but we'll see how that goes. A few communications projects going on. Today's our monthly meeting with the East Oklahoma County Fire Chiefs. We meet with them monthly, host a meeting. Got a lot of good projects going on there. Weather forecasters were accurate. They told us that April would be wetter than normal, and they're saying that May will be drier than normal. So,
What does the Palmer's Almanac say about that?
you know, I haven't checked the almanac. I used to do that. It actually has some great wisdom, and it's surprising how accurate.
They say it is very accurate.
Yeah.
You could ask it for them.
That's true.
You're going to find one, I think.
I'll see you this afternoon. How do you? That's pretty much it for emergency management, unless you have any questions.
Do I have a motion to accept the report?
Move to receive report. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 6, Stacy is attending an ODOT meeting today, so we won't be able to join us, so there'll be no action on item 6.
Yeah, Eric.
Eric, I'm sorry. Would you like to share something with us?
No, I just came for him and Tyler. He didn't have any updates to give,
Okay.
so.
Does this committee have any questions of Eric? Thank you, Eric.
Move to receive non-report.
Well, I would second the receival of the non-report.
All those in favor?
No.
No report, no.
Contrary.
Yes, mine is a yes.
Is Tyler here? No. We're back to Eric.
He was out of the office today. He didn't have any updates here, but if you had any questions, I can answer any questions.
Things are still going well with revenue. I think last week you reported we were on task, or maybe ahead of schedule as far as what we had coming in.
This last month is a little bit down from what it did previous months, but nothing significant decrease.
Great.
Move to receive.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8. Mr. Matthews is going to share with us.
Good morning.
How are you, Dan?
I'm terrific. Just let you know that as of this past Monday, Karen and I have taken over the HR function for the court clerk's office. We'll run an agenda item next week to get the board to formally accept that or approve that. So far, it's going well. We're meeting with their management staff every morning at 8:30, and Karen's actually up there now. They're doing some restructure in their management area and how they align their departments, and we're covering that for them today. The only other big issue that we've got going is the movement of the benefits department under the BOCC. We posted those jobs, and we received applications from the incumbents in those positions. Posting is closed, and now we're just waiting direction from this committee on how to proceed. Questions?
You require direction from us with relation to interviewing and hiring and things like that?
There was an agenda item on last week's BOCC meeting that I put on about this committee serving as the interview committee, as well as working on the logistics of the move.
How'd you slip that through?
I just put it on there, boldly stepped forward and did that. Since normally for a department head, we would have the chief deputies on an interview committee to do that. This seems like the committee that would fall under, and hopefully you'll ask me to be part of that interview team.
So, Mr. Chairman, is that on us to get interviews scheduled and hiring done? Because, I mean, this is something that I'd like to see happen.
Yeah, we just need an agenda item on the next meeting or whenever that we can start exploring what we need to do as far as establishing a committee. But we don't know, there's a lot of unanswered questions at this point.
So our next meeting isn't for a month, so are we going to, I guess the process is to call a special meeting that's really just full of executive session that goes for however long we need to conduct interviews. I mean, is that...
Well, and I'm sure that Aaron will stop me if I go too far. But basically, there's a lot of things we have applicants. This committee would probably discuss, we need to go outside, this pool of employees to seek other applicants. That's just things we have to talk about. You're right. Once we get to the interview process, that would more than likely qualify for an executive session as far as the interview process, talking about funding. There's a lot of things to talk about.
Part of what was on the agenda item was job descriptions, salaries, structure. I mean, it was pretty inclusive of trying to make sure we had the infrastructure in place, as well as the pieces that we need to effectively run that office. I think that this committee has approved recommending to the board some locations. Infrastructure, I'm sorry. Okay. One and the same almost, except for the name. But anyway.
So you need us to essentially set up the new department or sub-department, if you will, including job descriptions.
We've already rewritten job descriptions for all the positions, putting them in the format that we use, taking the information that they had on the previous job descriptions as well as some other input. John Wilkerson has taken a look at all of those, and I think he feels like they're probably right on where they need to be. But they officially need to be approved by, I don't know whether they come to this committee for review and recommendation that they move to the commissioners, if I just need to move that forward. But I think it came through, that was on the agenda item to refer to this committee.
Well, my fear, not just with this committee, but all committees, is getting weighed down in unnecessary bureaucracy. So, I mean, whatever we need to do to move this along, I mean, the commissioners have voted, you know, move these functions under our HR department, so.
Yeah, it's a standalone.
I'm sorry, yeah, that's, you're correct. Sorry. So, I mean, I don't know that we need to be the go-between before it goes to the BOCC. I mean, it seems like if this committee didn't exist, you would just be taking it directly to the BOCC.
Well, the way it's functioned in the past, Randy, is when we've advertised for positions, most notably recently the MIS director, I mean, there was a pool of 60 candidates, and rather the BOCC then had the chief deputies whittle that down and then come up with some finalists and get to them. So in that regard, we are probably necessary so as to not take their time with that. And then I think also what Dan's talking about, some of the salary recommendations, we need to take a look, and or my opinion would be we should take a look at the salary of this new director and make sure it's in line with what our other directors are making and make some recommendations with that regard. But
so let's, I mean,
schedule a special meeting.
yeah, we'll schedule a special meeting next week and get moving on these things, I suppose.
Okay.
And I'm out Monday and Tuesday of next week, so.
Okay, well,
But you guys go on without me.
okay, well.
Well, if you're here Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, we can wait.
Police capable? No.
Can we have infrastructure on Monday?
So, okay, so that's what you need from us is direction on just how are we gonna set up this new department, including salaries and
But I can
funding.
take a look at last week's agenda on that. I mean, because it was pretty broad.
Was it Monday's agenda or was it last week?
That was last week.
Well, see, you can't expect me to remember what happened last week.
You're much younger than I am, and I can't remember that. That's all I have.
Okay, any more questions?
Move to receive.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 9. Christie's gonna share with us.
She got married.
Congratulations, Christy.
Thank you.
Move to receive.
My party did.
Okay, let's see, not really an action item, but just kind of an FYI of a staffing issue that with HR's help, we've been able to resolve. Something that we put a lot of emphasis on in our department is cross-training. We like to be 3 deep on each function, and that works really well for us, but that's always been a challenge inside of the pharmacy itself, because you can't really cross-train other people as easily to step in there. The way that we've handled that with our pharmacists over time has been, we've got a chief pharmacist, but then we've got 3 part-time pharmacists who can rotate in and out, so they can take regular shifts and they can also step in if somebody's on leave. This works beautifully. So we've just recently decided to try doing the same thing with our pharmacy tech, because that has been a real challenge when our tech takes time off. So what we've done with the help of HR, we're just putting 2 licensed techs who don't really have a regular schedule. They just kind of float there on our payroll, so they're not costing a lot of money, but they're available to us, and we can call them in as we need to fill in. And so I'm really I'm excited about that and interested to see how well that's going to work out for us. So it just adds, it helps us with our goal of having all our functions cross-trained. So thought I would share that. The only other thing today that I would have to share is
to make reference to all of the floods and thunderstorms that David was talking about, and say that if anyone's interested in knowing what it's like to have a wedding outside in the midst of that, I could go on for quite some time.
Christy, last time you talked to us, she was talking about a possible move to Kronos. Do you know, is the infrastructure committee looking at that? Do you know? Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
This group could look at that. BOCC department,
Yeah. Okay.
in my opinion.
Anybody else have any questions? Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Christie. Item number 10, Mr. Till is going to share with us.
Yes, quick update. We, last week, were very happy to order all of the disaster recovery equipment that BOCC so graciously approved last year. So we just received our first shipment of some of those parts, and hopefully in the next few months here, as we receive all the items, we'll be quickly installing that equipment and providing updates to this committee, as well as the BOCC in general, on where we are with that and the disaster recovery planning. Another question for the committee for consideration. Recently, community sentencing has moved to being taken over by a group called TEAM, and we had their website, used to be linked on our website. Now they have a new website, which is beautiful. So I was thinking about the possibility of linking from the county website to that new community sentencing site, even though it's not necessarily done by the county, but that would be something for you all to consider, whether or not you want to link on where community sentencing used to be on the drop-down, and we just hyperlink over to their new site. Also, as an FYI, part of our Civic Plus package for the new website is coming in July, included the rebuild of the community sentencing website, which is still an option for them if you choose to use that. So that would be something for this committee to consider. It was everything that was on the county website previously when we quoted out Civic Plus in our statement of work, included redoing everything that was currently linked. So that could be something that you could say yes to, or we can keep the one they're using, and then table the idea of Civic Plus building something for community sentencing. It would be completely up to this committee or...
The community sentencing has a new website, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So right now, it used to be where you click on it and
Right.
it's like a single page that we provided. And so we're going to be taking that down, but we can still make it where the link is hyperlinked. So when someone drops down, community sentencing is still there, but it takes you to another website, which would be really easy for us to do.
But we would need Civic Plus to build Team a new website, though, since they already have one, right?
Correct. We would
Yeah.
need them to. We have it already included in the package in the original statement of work. So that would be, they can leave it like it is, or we can have Civic Plus build one if they decide that they don't want to use the team anymore, or we can just table that and not have Civic Plus build it
Well,
out.
aren't they a 501c3?
They are.
And they're not a county function,
Correct.
so how would we spend county dollars on a non-county entity that we don't have any kind of contractual relationship with that I'm aware of?
You can, like I said, the original statement of work, we wouldn't do that, obviously, if that's not what the rules are.
For a motion, then I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we direct IT to link the current community sentencing to the team website that's
Yes.
existing.
Correct. And then no longer have Civic Plus build out. Like I said, the original statement of work, we didn't differentiate. We took basically a snapshot of everything that was on the current county website and said, hey, what's going to cost to rebuild?
On this, and I think I'm going to be supportive of what Randy wants to do, but there will be a disclaimer that they are just being taken from the county website to a non-county website?
Correct. That's just it's a hyperlink where it just redirects them to a site that has nothing to do with us. The team is running it on their own. What's interesting, though, as far as support, which is a great question for the committee, is we've got 4 or 5 county elected officials that are on that board. And it's just for the sake of the constituents, it may be beneficial to help them or collaborate with them in some way as needed. Because we've got Mr. Rabbit's on there, P.D. Taylor is on the board, Commissioner Mond, and also I believe Scott Rowland is a participant there on that team.
Right, 2 of those are state officers.
Just an FYI, we can collaborate with them as much or as little as we need to, and it can be a hyperlink from our website to just direct people to there.
We have a motion on the table, and I have a question of Aaron. I understand the 501c status. I'm not clear on the linking. I mean, I'm clear on what you're saying, just hyperlinking. But I don't know, because of a non-contractual status, exists. Can we do that?
I'm not sure that it could be done. I need to look into that a little bit further. I think the same considerations
Right,
Joe brought
as a
up
disclaimer.
are still going to apply to even linking it, because it's still a use of county resources for something that is not a county function. But I'll be happy to look into that further
Okay,
if someone wants me to.
please. Okay, I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
Am I okay to move to the next item, or is?
Well, we can either, it either dies for lack of a second, or we can move to table the motion.
Okay.
Or I can withdraw it pending the advice of counsel. If that's what I'm hearing, is that we just need to look at what sort of disclaimer we may need to, if we can do it, pay of all, and then what sort of disclaimer. So I'll withdraw my motion pending the advice of counsel.
The other item update is one of the things that we've had at the county that we were trying to rectify with the implementation of Muniz was an audit finding on timekeeping. So I've been in several meetings with Muniz. Muniz has acquired a company called ExecuTime, which does advanced scheduling and time clock keeping. Previously, they did not offer. So this is a new module. They acquired the company, I believe, last year, and now they're offering this module as an option for Tyler Muniz users. The sheriff currently uses Kronos, which has worked great for them. They've got a good number of licensing to use for Kronos for all their advanced scheduling and the 24-hour scheduling that they have. So I've been in conversations with the sheriff and also with the county clerk, and will be soon with Tyler Muniz and Kronos on working on a better way to implement Kronos, have Kronos work directly into Muniz. Currently, the way we do it is where there's a file that's exported and then imported into Muniz. The state auditor's not really big on that. According to them, you can modify the CSV file that's exported. And so we're going to try to create a seamless web integration between Kronos and Tyler Muniz, which would allow Kronos just to communicate directly with Muniz. I talked with the clerk about it and the sheriff and some other parties, and I wanted to make this committee aware that Kronos is something that we're strongly considering, especially since there's so many users at the sheriff's office. And we have some subject matter experts at hand. Brandon Holmes and Mr. John Scuda are really sharp, and they've used it for years, and it's one of the leading timekeeping programs available. What's that?
The leading.
Yeah, it's big. So it's something for this committee to consider as we gather more information about this integration between Kronos and Muniz. There may be a cost associated with building the integration, which is forthcoming.
Are you indicating that we eventually could have Kronos, ExecuTime, and then what if we have Juby, we could have 3 payroll systems?
No, sir.
Just migrate everything to Kronos?
Correct. Well, it would be the option of, it would be the decision of the board to decide whether or not they wanted to keep people that weren't on a 24-hour time system, continuing to enter their time into ESS, which works great, and then have Kronos or another timekeeping program as an option for people that have advanced scheduling needs, where there's shift work, or you've got districts which they show up in all kinds of odd times and work overtime. So this would be something for this committee to consider as far as what we use. Ideally, there's going to be only 2, which would be Muniz, ESS, and Kronos, and the integration between Kronos and Muniz would be seamless. Based on my conversations with some of the stakeholders, which is the clerk, and with the sheriff, which is a big user of the timekeeping, that they prefer Kronos. And that would be obviously a decision of the sheriff and the board, this committee, and then the BOCC on how they wanted to proceed with the timekeeping program. But that's an update on that. I met yesterday with Mr. Hooten and the sheriff and Brandon Holmes. And there's been other departments that have expressed interest in using the program, especially for people that have, long hour shift work, working on roads, etc. The cost would be to write the integration with it, which was what they call a web API. And this would allow Kronos to communicate directly with Muniz on a timed schedule. So we'd say, hey, every 4 hours update Muniz, or at this particular time frame during the day, do it once a day, maybe twice a day. It would be obviously decided by stakeholders involved, which would also be some technical people on how they wanted to report it. Ultimately, the supervisors are responsible for approving time, and there's a hierarchy structure there involved, so there will be some considerations there. I'm going to be giving some pricing on that integration and then presenting it to this committee and the BOCC on what it would cost to integrate Kronos directly with Muniz without having to have the manual interface between someone downloading and exporting the file and then importing it back into Muniz.
Go ahead, you have a question, Cody?
Yeah, in a previous BET meeting, I think it was last week, you had mentioned that there's currently modules in the Tyler Muniz system that we're not utilizing, and if we basically turn those off, then the executive time would kind of eat up that expense, so it wouldn't be an additional expense, right?
Correct.
Is that an option to utilize the turning off of those modules towards the expense of developing this module?
It is. That's exactly what we were considering.
And then the money that you have left after your training, we'll still have a credit in there. Would that be able to be utilized for that expense as well?
That's absolutely correct.
Coming up with the integration, to follow up with where Cody's going, that's a one-time expense.
Correct. There may be some maintenance involved if we have a significant change of county policy. So, for example, if they write the integration based on certain rules on how people keep their time, and they say, all right, we're going to write this integration based on these rules, and then this board or the BOCC decides we want to change the rules, then someone has to go in and change that integration to match the rule change. So there generally will be a one-time expense, but from time to time there may be some ongoing modifications that need to be made based on what the board decides to do on how to keep time.
And I'm no Muniz expert, but a couple of things. So when we first got Muniz as a county, we were told that it would be seamless with Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are you telling me the seamless portion of what we were told we were getting is a manual download?
Yes. Well, it's not what we would call it's synchronous, which means that it only communicates one way. So we can previously you could write the integration where it would actually talk to Muniz, but then Muniz wouldn't actually communicate back to Kronos, and this is one of the challenges. So if someone enters the information in Muniz and ESS, that's not a 24-hour user, okay? Let's say an 8 to 5 person at the juvenile is not using the advanced scheduling of Kronos. There's a lot of technical details to look at. Then the person that's looking at Kronos wouldn't be able to necessarily see their time from Muniz. So the integration is one way. It basically is Kronos communicating with Muniz, but not the other way. And so currently what we're doing is we are doing that manually, but it can be done automatically. But even if we do it automatically, there's a question about whether or not it can be asynchronous, which is communicate both ways. And this is some of the work that Mr. Holmes and Scuda and others need to do from a technical perspective. I need to engage with Muniz and Kronos to figure out what their deal is on this integration and get some hard answers, get some good answers from them. I think it's technically feasible, and I think we can get it done. I'll be very surprised if Muniz says we can't have asynchronous communication. And they may do it just to be adversarial, because Kronos is now considered to be a competitor of theirs because they've acquired this executive time.
Correct. So at the time we made the purchase, it was based, at least in part, some kind of statement that it was seamless with Kronos.
Agreed.
So perhaps that would help Muniz want to work with us.
I agree. There's no reason it shouldn't be asynchronous communication. It shouldn't be that complicated. If we're paying for them to write the integration, it shouldn't be that complicated for them to do. And I know from my experience that it is technically feasible. It's just a matter of if they want to cooperate.
And right now, when we want to make changes, I think Augie has the ability to make some modifications within what we purchased in units. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if we pay for this ability to be able to go both ways, would we as the end user not have the ability to, if we change a rule, to make the necessary changes ourselves so it can continue to talk to each other?
No, that would be a challenge. The integration is probably going to be used, it's going to be like a third-party web API. The same thing like when you sync your phones, like if you download an app and there's an update, there's actually a web API where it goes out, grabs the information, and brings it down. So this integration is not something that's going to be native to Kronos or native to Muniz. It's going to be a third-party integration written that grabs all that data, says, here's this data, and then puts it there, and then Muniz takes the data, goes and grabs the data from Muniz and puts it back in Kronos. So it's going to be, in my opinion, it'll end up being a third-party program that's written and used by both Muniz and Kronos, where it grabs that information back and forth and synchronizes the two. It's not something that if we went into Muniz and made the change, it wouldn't actually go, you have to go and actually change the integration, third-party integration piece to make it talk back and forth whenever there is a significant change. Now, you may be able to have general rules change, like if you wanted to make someone change their time schedule, that's completely different. Talking about the fundamental rules of how time is kept, like the way that pay is calculated, or time and attendance, or if leave is accrued using a certain formula, and you were to change that via, like a committee voted on changing the way time is accrued, or leave is accrued, we would actually have to go into the integration and change the integration to recalculate different than it would be previously. That's very much in the weeds, and we can provide you with more technical updates as we get into the integration part of it, but it's going to be pretty complex. Not so complex that it's not technically feasible. I would say it would be complex for this committee because we can sit around and talk about it have a lot of fun, at least in my world, talking about integration.
May I make a comment?
You may.
Sitting on Kronos implementation as well as Muniz, when we were purchasing that, it was my understanding that Muniz said they already had clients that were on Kronos and they had built interfaces where the data dumped, it went both ways. Is Muniz saying that they can't do that now?
That's based on my conversation yesterday with Brandon Holmes. Brandon Holmes, I consider kind of the subject. He implemented Kronos, I think, from the beginning, my understanding.
He was on that process.
Correct, and his information he relayed to me yesterday was that it's only synchronous, and that you can get the information into Muniz by writing an integration, but when he did it, this was some time ago, it was only one way, and Muniz couldn't get it back out. So there's some technical discovery that needs to be done. I just had the meeting yesterday on gathering all the right amount of facts to figure out what's actually true and untrue. So based on Mr. Holmes, what he told me yesterday, it's only synchronous right now. It's just one way.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a follow-up? You mentioned the sheriff's office. You're discussing with them the possibility of changing or keeping the time system. My understanding is that juvenile is on Nova time, a different timekeeping system.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looped juvenile into this conversation about a potential move of the pay-keeping system?
I haven't, juvenile knows, when I talked to Mr. Sappel last year, and he wanted to update his Nova
But
time.
Mr. Sappel's not there anymore.
No, but I'm going to give you a brief history on how I've looped juvenile in. Juvenile has not been involved today as of my recent meeting with the clerk and the sheriff yesterday. So that's the conversation I had to bring them into. Previously, they knew that when they upgraded to Nova time, that, hey, this isn't the best solution as far as the auditor is concerned, and the county having 3 different timekeeping systems. So this new executive time module is coming down. Let's see what it is. and consider it in the future as a possibility for you to move in that direction. So that was quite some time ago. I had that conversation with juvenile, and I need to bring them back in because there's some real challenges there, the way the time is kept.
Well, and there's a new director, Mr. Seipel's not there anymore,
Mhm.
and it seems to me, getting buy-in and commitment up front is much easier than trying to shove it down somebody's throat on the backside. So I think getting that stakeholder involved in this process is probably...
No doubt about it. We're going to have them involved very, very soon. I think, like I said, it's just the initial conversation. I just got a quote about it, what the cost of executive time was early last week, and then we had this meeting scheduled with the clerk and sheriff this week. So a lot of this stuff is very dynamic, and I'm just receiving it. And we didn't really have all the information we needed to even approach juvenile. We didn't have cost. No one had really seen executive time. This conversation with the sheriff hadn't transpired. So I definitely plan on bringing juvenile into the conversation. So they're a stakeholder that has to be involved.
And Jamie Overstreet had been the acting director, but last Friday she was actually named the director.
Right.
Yeah.
Rob, on your, I'd like to talk about the credit that we got from Tyler. On your weekly status, you indicated that you're going to spend approximately $7,600 for registration fees for 8 people.
Yes.
Which would give an approximate balance of about $24,275.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to the board that whatever the balance is of that credit after we pay the cost of the attendance as far as registration costs, we use that balance to pay for a future Tyler bill. Instead of keeping a credit balance.
Just so you're aware, sir, the credit could also be used to write this integration. We can either do it via modules and say, we're going to cancel a couple modules and use the money to write the integration between Kronos and Muniz, or we can use some of this credit. It would be at the board's pleasure.
And that information wasn't available when I was thinking about it yesterday, but my personal feelings, I would still just like to credit that money back.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So you got any more information, Rob?
Not at this time. I think there's plenty of time, unless there's other questions that I'm missing.
Well, on the payroll system, it'll be a month away. You might have some updates on that.
Sure.
Okay, and then we talked last time, which was a couple of weeks ago, you're just going to provide some information as far as the distinction between policies and procedures.
Sure.
As far as the audit.
Yes. So I've communicated with the auditor on what they define as reportable and non-reportable findings. So the difference, according to the auditor, between a reportable and non-reportable is that any non-reportable finding can become reportable if it's not actually mitigated. So while we might have a large number of non-reportable findings, if those findings aren't mitigated to the auditor's satisfaction, then over time, eventually these become reportable items. So it would be, so we don't have a whole lot of reportable findings right now, but it would be a matter of prevention and proactive maintenance of our systems and policies and procedures as such, that we would keep a regular, steady flow of updating these, even though they're non-reportable, to prevent them from becoming reportable. And that was the auditor's perspective on obviously the term used last.
Right. I guess it's just, in my mind's eye, it's just utilizing your resources, and I'm not really clear what all your resources are, but I'm just picking numbers out of the air. If you had 13 or 14 non-reportable items, I don't know how good that would be as far as if you utilize a lot of resources working on non-reportable items. See what I'm getting at? I agree with what you're saying. They could become reportable. I don't know how the auditor looks at it, like in the perfect world, you should be doing all this. And I don't know if you can ever achieve the perfect world, so to speak.
There's a distinction between actually daily operations of IT as an audit, something that can be evaluated by an audit
Right.
And that's what the auditor's talking about. It's not stuff that I would consider to be window dressing.
Right.
I also wouldn't consider it to be icing on a cake,
Right.
but I would consider it to be fundamental and systematic maintenance and operation of our overall systems. As the auditors identified, hey, you should have these policies and procedures in place because this is how it should be done.
Right.
Now,
And she would probably address that as a reportable item, though, other than a non-reportable.
you would have to ask her about that, sir. She gives me the findings this year when I came on board. She has a list of the findings, and I consider it my responsibility to try to mitigate those, non-reportable and reportable, as the best I possibly can. As far as my resources are concerned, I try to maintain an 80-20 rule. As far as, I consider the non-reportable items important, but they're not super urgent.
Right.
So I've got about 20% of my resources focusing on the non-urgent but important items.
Right.
And the rest of it, we're focused on really critical things. We have several big projects coming up. I could spend a lot of time talking to you about those that we're spending most of our time on. What we don't want to do is ignore these non-reportable findings where they can just let it go year after year, and now all of a sudden they become reportable when we could have prevented it.
Can you give me a history of kind of an example of that? Go back and look at previous audits and show me where that's occurred, the length of time, et cetera, for that to occur?
For reportable and unreportable, I can certainly try to find out. I know that I can find out. I can ask them and see if they can provide me with some history on reportable
Well, you
findings.
should have all of that. You should be able to find it. Don't you have a staff person that's dedicated to this?
We do. We had information on the last time policy was approved by the VOCC pertaining to IT. It was in 2013. So that was the last time a policy has been approved by the VOCC as a full body. So there's not a whole lot of documentation, sir. We're trying to develop it and make the county no longer have reportable or non-reportable findings where there's a very small amount of findings, that we have really great IT, that we're doing everything the auditor asks us to do without overburdening my current resources to keep running the department. But we can't not work on this at least 20% of our time. So we're spending a good amount of, I would consider a reasonable amount of our resources on mitigating the audit findings.
Do we still have reportable items that hadn't been fixed?
No.
Okay.
All of our findings, I believe, are non-reportable at this time. There is, and I don't want to get into the details of what the exact findings were, but over time, I can I'll get the issue for you, Mr. Blau, on what happened in the past with findings, what's been reportable and non-reportable.
Okay.
And
then where are we at? You guys had recently conducted a survey, which you gave me the copies of the information I requested, and indicated that for a variety of reasons, there was only about 50% or so of the respondents that you sent to had responded, and you were going to continue that to try to get the rest of their input. Is that correct?
We have 59% respondents of the survey. We're utilizing that tool or mechanism for something as an internal document to really understand the pain points of the directors. What is it the directors, the department, and the VOCC, what's their biggest needs, and provide them with something where they can get in there and fill out the survey and answer questions. They have a section where they can be anonymous on comments, so if they want to say, hey, you guys really let us have it on certain areas. So we use it as an internal instrument. I'm happy to share it with anyone on the VOCC. It was an internal instrument we use to kind of get an idea of our strategic vision with the help of this committee, obviously, on developing that overall, which I'm happy this committee is here because that's the kind of stuff we need to talk about. It really gives you a baseline and lets you project, which technology is so dynamic and it changes rapidly enough that having an overall vision on the direction we're going as a county as it pertains to IT. This was the beginning of that conversation and allowed us to kind of have a baseline of where we were. And then if there was any pain points that were super urgent, we could start addressing them right now. And raise
in fact, my question, is it your intent that you would try to get the rest of those that you sent it to respond, or you're done?
it wasn't my intent. After we had 60%, I considered that a first run. And we have a defect, obviously you want 100%. Ideally, the recommendation is have a better than 75% response rate. We had 59%, so I didn't move on. We sent them out, we have a list of people that we sent it to, we could provide that list.
We did get one.
I didn't.
Okay, so you're done. There's no more with the survey then. So if you'll update my information, whatever I don't have that you provided me, you'll give to me individually. I'm not asking.
Yeah, you have a copy. I sent you a most recent copy with 59%. So that's the most recent copy you have is the 59% number. Now, I can send the survey out again if the committee decides that that would be in the best interest of the county. Like I said, it was just something I used as a tool to get a baseline using some real metrics and math on surveys and points that are measurable. I'm in a scientific business, so we try to use science as much as we can on determining, on making decisions. We use it as something regularly in my department. So the more science we can get behind our decision making, the better chance we have for success in the future.
Any more questions?
Move to accept.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 11. I think Mr. Monroe is going to give us an update.
Yes,
Thank you for being here, Keith.
thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm sorry I missed last go-round, and making sure the paint order was correct. So, much of everything I have to offer or explain is duplicitous. It's also explained, I think, to some degree when appropriate in the infrastructure meetings. There is some items, I don't know how extensive a list of the things we have going on you want to hear. You tell me.
Just give us a general overview.
PBA properties, we're working at Lincoln, in a vent room out there. The county treasurer intends to hold his resale auction in June in that space. We're working fast and furious to have that ready to go. ICB lease preparations for all the PBA properties are in the process of being prepared and distributed now. We've got 2 insurance claims working, flooding in the annex still, and the fire that we suffered in the Metro parking garage. Projects we have going on, 9th floor demolition, we've got AB people working there. Annex first floor to include David Barnes' area, we've got AB people working there, and mechanicals, United Mechanical on site with equipment in place. That being constructed. That mechanical contract, if you recall, involved the 1st and 2nd floors and also the 6th floor. To that end, and I don't know if this is the appropriate committee to present this to, but I would be asking that we use a portion of the southwest corner of the 1st floor of the annex to be used as swing space as we move through the 6th floor of the annex to address the HVAC issues above the ceiling. It's my understanding that Rob's group, you're finished or will soon be finished with that training area, or is that not the case?
We utilize the training area, but we have an alternate. We could actually set up a training area in our data center with a lot of open space in there, which would require some air assistance. But that space would be available, it'd just be a matter of kind of doing a little remodel, small,
Sure.
in that data center area. We could set up training in there pretty easy. But we like the room, we do use it.
Okay.
So it's available, I mean, for the emergency.
There is an adjacent space where District 2 has furniture and things stored. I'd like to take a portion of that area, wall it off to use for the public defender's files That would give us some space on 6, so we could begin working above the ceilings there. The 6th floor, many of you may not know, years and years ago, the AB above the ceiling was encapsulated from east to west, ending at the elevator lobby area. Those areas where there are encapsulation should go quickly. As we move farther west, there will be more asbestos work necessary. That means containments, and that means displacement of workers in some of those areas. What else here? A good thing, the sheriff, and in particular, Marshal McDonald, was helpful in restoring our access, the facility access, from the annex to the Investors Capitol building on the 4th floor. That previously had been denied to us, and so anytime we had to take materials and supplies or equipment between the two buildings, we had to sit and wait for a sheriff's deputy. They responded as quickly as they could, but we had to wait for a sheriff's deputy to come up and escort us to and from. Those regulations have been relaxed just a little bit to allow us to use that crossover when we have to carry materials or supplies. So,
is there any security concerns on that? I mean, is it just a limited amount of people that have that access?
Yes, yes, and the security concerns are still there, but we assured the Sheriff's Department that we will use that access only when we move to and from the buildings with equipment. Otherwise, we'll exit the annex and go in the ICB or vice versa.
Thanks.
Assuming there are no more questions, I'll move to accept.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Do we have any new business? Seeing none, do we have any citizens that would like to participate at this time? Board comments. Randy?
Nothing for me. No.
Yeah, for those that haven't already started, I just encourage all the department heads to start finalizing their contracts coming up, in July, into June. As far as, getting them ready and send them up to whatever channels you go through. And that's all I have. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.